right, let's see who's awake this morning. Let's start looking at the first problem. First thing I need to do on something like this, my absolute value has to be isolated. So I have to get it alone. What else is on the same side of the equal sign as the absolute value? -2 is there, and the +1 is there. Those are both going to have to go. As I get rid of things, I have to get rid of them in the opposite order from what order of operation says, because we're undoing stuff, not doing it. So I start at the bottom. Is there any addition or subtraction? Because that's where I would start.
-1 on both sides.
-1 to make it cancel. So -1, -1. Cancels out there. So I have -2, x minus 6 inside the absolute value is equal to 9. Remember, the absolute value is not parentheses. So when I get rid of everything else on that side, that doesn't make the bars go away, because it has meaning. Parentheses are always just there to protect things and say, hey, this comes first, this happens first. But that's its only meaning. Absolute value has a different meaning. So I can't just get rid of it once I've taken care of that -2.
Divide -2 by both sides.
Divide, yes, that -2 is being multiplied to the absolute value. And so to make it cancel, I'm going to divide both sides by -2. So it's going to cancel out right here. That would give me the absolute value of x minus 6 is equal to what?
It's
-4.5. What does absolute value mean again? How far it is from 0. So this is saying that the distance is -4.5 units from 0. Where could I be on the number line if I am -4.5 units away from 0? Be careful. I'm going to go on vacation with my family in a couple weeks. Why not?
Because this is negative.
Distance isn't negative.
So it can't be.
There we go. Distance cannot be negative. So can I keep going with this problem?
No.
So what's my answer?
Or no solutions.
No solutions. That's why I said we're going to see who's awake this morning. Normally, if it hadn't come out to be a negative, we could be standing on the left side or the right side, and so then we would split it into positives and negatives. But if I get the absolute value isolated and it's equal to a negative, I can't go any further. It's like saying x squared equals negative. There's nothing that I can take and multiply by itself and end up with a negative number. All right, second one on the bell work. What is my vertex here? -3, -7. -7 back here, that's my k value. Remember, my vertex is always hk. H is -3, but I see in the equation not h, but the opposite of h. Let's do axis of symmetry next. X equals -3. Absolutely correct. Remember, an axis of symmetry is going to take something and cut it so that the two sides look exactly the same. So that's what this would do. It's always going to be vertical, and it's always going to go through my vertex. So it's always going to be an x equals equation, and it's going to be the x part of the vertex. That's how I can send it right through there. Transformations, I want words here.
Stretched by -4. Stretched by 4.
I heard down 7, I heard stretched by 4. Both of those are correct. Let me write those down, and then we'll keep going. So down 7, vertically stretched
Left 3.
by 4, left 3.
Is it going with
Yes, it is. And reflect over the x-axis. Good job. Whenever our a value is negative, that will make it reflect. And then we get that vertical stretch going on because of the whole number. The negative only reflects it. All right, I want you to flip forward in your books for me to page 181. Page 181. We're going to do a little short reintroduction to something called interval notation, which we've already been using. We've been using this to write our domain and range. We're going to learn a little bit more about it now. Because up until now, sometimes we've used parentheses, sometimes we've used brackets, and we've talked about it a little bit. We're going to dig into it a little bit more today about when you use which one. Up until this point, if you guys have used the wrong symbol, a bracket when it should have been a parenthesis, I've just corrected it and still given you full points for it. From this point forward, I will be looking for the correct bracket or parenthesis because we're going to have a long discussion about it today and we're going to keep practicing with it. So when I have an inequality, if it has an or equal to with it, like this, then I'm going to use a bracket. If it has the or equal to, then I use a bracket. If it does not have the or equal to with it, like over here, then I'm going to use a parenthesis. So the way I would write this one using interval notation, my interval notation doesn't have x's in it. It has the starting number and the stopping number. Which one of these is smaller, the 0 or the 4? 0. So I would start with that number. And because it has the or equal to with it, I'm going to put a bracket around the outside of it. And then a comma. And then I put the larger number. So here's where I put the 4. This one did not have an or equal to, though, right? So we're going to use a parenthesis around it. If I were to see this on a number line, it would look like this. At 0, it would have a filled in dot. At 4, it would have an open dot because it doesn't have that or equal to with it. And then it would be shaded in between those two. So that's what my number line would look like. For part B, before I write my interval notation, let's talk about what that would look like on a number line. So I know I need a -1 on my number line. Would that be an open dot or filled in dot? Open. How do we know? Yep, it does not have the or equal to with it. Doesn't have that line underneath it. Which way would it be shaded? To the right, because it's a greater than. It's pointing off to the right. So it'd be shaded this way. When would it stop? Infinity. It would never stop. So I'm going to write this idea right here using interval notation. What's the smallest number, the one farthest to the left? -1. Would I use a parenthesis or a bracket around my -1? What'd you say? parenthesis, why?
Because, when you do it's not a greater than or equal to.
Yes, it's not got that or equal to symbol. When I graph it, it's an open dot. And then I want to write down where it stops being shaded, but you told me it doesn't stop. Infinity. When we have infinities, we always use parentheses because I can't ever get all the way to infinity. So I would always use a parenthesis with my infinities. What would C look like graphed on a number line? Closed circle at 2. Shaded to the left. And it would never stop on its way to the left. So what's the smallest thing that I have shaded here? The smallest thing that I have shaded when I'm on a number line, that would be things on the left side of it, right? Infinity. But what types of numbers are over there? So this would be a negative infinity here. Always use parentheses with an infinity. What's the biggest thing, the largest thing, the thing farthest to the right that's shaded? 2. You said a bracket? Why a bracket? Yeah. It has the or equal to. It's a filled in dot, so I use a bracket there. So far, so good? Yes. Awesome. Part D is a little bit weird. Why? It has an or. It's got 2 things. Let's look at them one at a time. So let's look at this part first. So at 0, do I have an open or a closed dot? Open. And which way would I shade then? To the left, less than. So what would that interval look like? Negative infinity, comma, 0. I know I need a parenthesis around the negative infinity. What about the 0? How do we decide? It doesn't have the or equal to, so that means a parenthesis. Yep. Good work. Okay, let's go look at the other one. X is greater than 3. Would 3 be to the left or the right of 0? To the right. Open or closed circle at the 3? Open. And shaded which way? Shaded to the right. I always start with the smallest thing, so the thing farthest to the left. So 3, parenthesis or a bracket? Parenthesis. Until when? When does it stop being shaded? Infinity. Parenthesis or bracket? Parentheses. Okay, we're actually not quite done. Do you see this gap on the number line where it's not shaded? The way I explain that there's a gap on the number line, we're going to use something called a union, which looks like a big capital letter U. I just put that in between my 2 intervals. That's how I explain that there's a gap, there's a spot that's not shaded. Let's look down at the number lines, and we're going to write the intervals for those. We'll do E and F together. You guys will do G and H on your own. Okay? So for E, what are the 2 numbers that are going to be part of my interval? I want the left one first and then the right one. 3 and 8, separated by a comma. Do I want a parenthesis or a bracket with the 3? Parenthesis with my 3. Bracket for the 8 because it's a filled in dot. Perfect. All right, let's look at the next one down. What do you notice about the next one down? It's split. It's a gap. How do I explain the gap part when I write my interval? Yes, we're going to use a union, which is going to be a U. So I know I need that in between my two intervals.
So we have negative infinity.
Negative infinity, that's out to the left, all the way up until what number?
Negative 3.
-3. Bracket or parenthesis with the -3?
Parentheses.
Parenthesis, because it has an open circle. Where does it pick up again?
3.
At 3. Would I need a bracket or parenthesis with the +3? Bracket, because it's filled in. Where would it stop? Infinity.
And that's gonna have a parentheses.
That has a parenthesis. Infinities always have parentheses.
So we don't know where they're gonna stop.
That's absolutely correct. All right, I want you guys to do the next two on your own. I'm going to give you about a minute and a half. What should part G look like? What's the first number I would write down? -1. Bracket or parenthesis with the -1? Bracket. What's the second number? 2. Bracket or parenthesis there? Parenthesis. Beautiful. What about the last one, part H? -8. You said with a bracket? And then infinity with a parenthesis. Wonderful. Okay. We are going to use this notation not just for domain and range, but for some other types of problems that we're going to learn how to do today. Turn over to page 182 for me. What do you notice on problem number 1 in between my absolute value and my 14?
Here's a greater and less than sign.
Yes, we have an inequality here.
No, well, this is a less than. Sorry.
Yep, less than or equal to, yep. All right, that's supposed to be a Q right there. There we go. Inequality. Inequalities, for the most part, work a lot like equal signs. If you do something to one side, you do the same thing to the other side, just like with equations. But there's something we got to watch out for with inequalities. Does anybody remember what it is? Something that would make it change directions or flip.
Which way is facing?
Yes, if we multiply or divide by a negative number on both sides, it's going to take my inequality and it's going to flip it around the other way. Find a spot on the page and make yourself a note. If we multiply or divide by a negative number, the inequality will flip directions. So we got to be watching for that. Adding and subtracting won't do it at all, but anytime we multiply or divide, if the thing that we put on the bottom of a fraction or the thing that we multiply by is a negative, it's going to make my inequality switch directions. All right. Just like when we're doing this with equations, I want my absolute value to be isolated.
No, it's not yet. Oh, no, it is.
Yep, this one's already isolated for us. So I'm happy about that. That makes it a little bit easier. What does absolute value mean again?
How far it is from 0.
How far it is from 0. So this, if I read this back in English, it says that the distance is, and then I have, what's that symbol? Less than or equal to 14 units from 0.
So it can either be 14 on 13, 12, 11, 90.
Yeah, let's actually, I'm going to draw a little number line because I want to see where this could be, but I like your thinking. Okay, 0's right here. 14 would be right here. Is there anywhere else that I could be standing to be 14 units from 0?
Negative.
I could be on the negative side. Based on the inequality symbol there, could I be standing right at 14?
Yes.
Yes, because it has the or equal to. So that's perfectly okay. Could I be standing here?
No.
Why not?
Because
That's past 14. That's more than 14 units away from 0. Could I be standing here?
yes.
Okay. What about here? So far, so good? Okay, so I can stand here. I can stand here. Can I stand right at 0?
Yes.
Okay. So any of these things in here. So I'm going to go ahead and shade this part because I could be anywhere in there, right? So I could put little dots until it's fully shaded in. Could I be right here?
Yes.
Is that less than 14 units away from 0?
Yes.
Yes. Could I be standing right here?
Yes.
Yep. So I could stand here, 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 here. Could I be standing on the other side of negative 14? Why not?
Yes.
Can't go past 14.
Why not? I like your answer. Why is that not okay? Tell me why. What are you looking at to know that we can't go past 14? Less than. It says my distance is less than 14 units away from 0. And if I go past the 14,
That's more than 14.
now I'm more than 14 units away from 0.
If we are at 15, that's 15 units away from 0.
There you go. So I can be here or here or anywhere in between those two, right? That all meets the criteria. So those are my boundaries for my inequality. Negative 14, positive 14. In between there is my absolute value. In here is where the absolute value lives. So I would have negative 2x minus 4 in between those two boundaries. Mhm. Did you guys ever do the alligator eats the bigger thing in elementary school with inequalities? I did this way too much. I didn't even know that they had names like less than and greater than for the longest time. I'm just like, the alligator eats the bigger thing. I was in high school before I knew they had names. Which number would the alligator not eat here?
14.
14?
No, negative 2.
Negative 14, right? The smallest number up here is negative 14, so the alligator's not ever going to eat that, right? Alligator eats the bigger thing. So I'm going to have a less than or equal to here. These things that are shaded are all bigger than negative 14, so the alligator would munch on this. That's what this is. Would the alligator eat the 14?
Yes.
Yes, he'd keep munching all the way this way. So another greater than or equal to here. This is called a compound inequality. We're going to draw two fences where we have these inequalities. You know how with equations, if you do it to one side, you got to do it to the other side? Well, now I got two other sides to do it to. But other than that, it's exactly the same. What would I need to do first to get the x all by itself?
Plus 4 on all sides.
Plus 4 on all sides. So plus 4, plus 4, plus 4. In the middle, that makes my 4 cancel. So what do I have left in the middle?
Negative 2x.
Negative 2x. Did we multiply or divide by anything? Or did we add or subtract just now? We added. So that's not going to affect my inequalities at all. They're going to stay just like this. What is negative 14 plus 4?
Negative 10.
Negative 10. What's 14 plus 4?
18.
18. What else do I need to do to get the x all by itself? Divide negative 2 on all sides. So that's going to cancel out in here. I'm left with the x. What's negative 10 divided by negative 2? 5. What's 18 divided by negative 2? Close. 9. Negative 9. Which one of those things is the biggest? 5. Alligator always eats the bigger thing, right? What just happened to my inequality? Why? And what did we divide by? A negative. We divided by a negative number. So it flipped the inequalities. Right here. When I look at a number line, if I'm reading my number line from left to right, do I see 5 first and then negative 9? If I'm going from left to right, which of those numbers will I run into first? The negative 9. I'm going to go and graph this, so I want to make sure that it's written down the same way that I would see it on a number line. I'm not going to erase what I wrote up above, but I am going to turn it around so that the smallest thing is on the left, just like on my number line, and the biggest thing is on the right, just like on my number line. I'm going to come over here to this number line. You said negative 9 would be farthest to the left, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to put that over here somewhere on the left side of my number line. 5 is going to be to the right of that. Ooh. Would these have filled in circles or open circles?
Fill in.
Why?
Because it's greater. It's equal to.
Yep, it's got that or equal to. The things that I'm going to shade in are all the possible things for x. Do you see how x is in between these two numbers here? That means I'm going to shade in between those two numbers. These are all the things that x could be. How would I write that using the interval notation that we learned about? The brackets and parentheses.
Oh, you put the
Bracket. Why?
because it's filled in.
Because it's filled in. So bracket, what would my first number be? Negative 9, because that's the one that's farthest to the left.
You put 5 in another bracket.
5 and another bracket. Perfect. Let's look at one more problem that we're going to solve today. We'll keep practicing with these tomorrow. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you see how you switched it when you divided by -2?
Mhm.
You're supposed to switch it again when you get the final answer?
So I didn't switch it again, but I did take the whole thing and write it down the opposite way. So what I did from here to here, that's a great question. I noticed that when my inequalities flipped, the alligator was eating the bigger thing. But when I look at a number line and I read my number line left to right, this isn't the first thing I see on the number line, and then I get to this. So I wrote it down with the smallest thing on the left and the biggest thing on the right, but the alligator still needs to eat the bigger thing. So that's why we see those inequalities almost look like they're flipping, but because these two traded places, my inequalities follow those numbers. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. One more problem for today. Let's look at number 2. Yes, sir. Oh, yep, you may go.
Can you go back a little?
Yep, absolutely. We're going to do number 2. We're going to keep practicing with this on Friday with these inequalities. Tomorrow, you guys have an e-learning day. This is different than what happened last week. You know how last week we had Zoom? Tomorrow, there will not be Zoom for any of your classes. You will still have things to do, but it's going to be on your own work. I will talk to you here in just a minute after we do this next problem about what it's going to look like for this class, okay? All right. Is my absolute value all alone on one side? Yes. This is isolated. And that makes me happy because I don't have to do any work at the beginning. What does absolute value mean again? Yes. How far are we away from 0? So this says the distance is, what's this inequality mean this time? Greater than or equal to. (15 units from 0). So I want to draw a quick number line again because I want to make sure I'm setting this up right, and my number lines help me think through these things. So 0's right here. Where could I be if I'm 15 units from 0? I could be at -15, or I could be at +15. Could I be standing right at +15? Because it has what symbol? The or equal to part of it means I could stand right there. Could I be right here?
No.
Why not?
Because it's greater than.
It says greater than. So where could I be?
Anywhere after the 15.
Anywhere after the 15 would be okay. You said that -15 is also 15 units away from 0, right?
Yeah.
Could I be standing right on it?
Yeah.
Yes. Could I be standing here?
No.
Why not?
Because it gotta be greater than.
That's
That's closer to 0.
closer to 0. I don't want to be close to 0. I want to be more than, greater than 15 units away. So where could I be?
Anywhere after the -15.
Anywhere after or behind the -15. So anything that I have shaded is where my inequality lives. Or not inequality, my absolute value. My absolute value lives here and here. We are going to have a U on this, yes. I need to set this up first, though. It's shaded off to the left, so I would have 15x minus 10 and a -15. Because my absolute value lives over here in this shaded space. That's why I wrote this first. Would the alligator eat this or the -15? Which piece is bigger?
The first part.
What kind of numbers are over here?
Bigger number.
Not bigger numbers.
No.
As I move to the left,
The numbers are smaller.
the numbers get smaller. So my inequality is actually going to be like this because it's shaded to the left of the -15. Over here, it's shaded which way from the 15? To the right. So that one gets a greater than. This one's weird. This one is two different inequalities. We're going to separate them with a union because there's that gap. But I don't have a compound inequality this time. I had a greater than here, but on this one I have a less than because it's shaded to the left because that's what gets me farther away from 0. I want to solve both of these. How do I get rid of that -10?
Plus 10 on both sides.
Plus 10 on both sides. I'm going to add 10 to both sides. So I have 5x is less than or equal to -5. Divide both sides by 5. Do I need to flip my inequality around?
No.
No, because what we divided by was not a negative. Over here, I'm going to add 10 to both sides here too. 5x is greater than or equal to 25. So what do I have when I divide them both by 5? X is greater than or equal to 5. When I go to graph that on my number line, we're still going to see that gap show up. Positive 5 is going to be over here somewhere, filled in and shaded to the right. What would these look like as intervals?
Oh, AB bracket negative 1 to
Negative infinity to negative 1. Bracket around my negative 1 because it's a filled in dot, but it's shaded to the left, so I need that negative infinity. How do I explain that there's a gap there? A U for union. Where does it pick up again at?
Oh, 5.
At 5.
Use a bracket.
We use a bracket. Where does this shading stop?
Infinity.
Infinity. We're going to keep practicing with both of these. You guys have a short homework assignment for tonight that's due tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm available via Canvas messages or email if you need to get a hold of me, but there will not be any live class, no Zoom tomorrow. There are 2 things that you'll turn into me. One of them is very, very short. Needs to be done before midnight tomorrow. I'm using it for attendance. It's like a bell work. It's even called a bell work. Then you have a longer assignment that you need to do for this class that's a chance to review what we've done so far. Because your test is a week from tomorrow. We're almost done with this unit. This is the next to last thing that we need to learn. Then there's only one other piece that we need to talk about. So we're going to pause tomorrow. You're going to have a chance to review. We're not going to teach anything new. On Friday, we'll keep practicing with this idea. Okay? Please let me know if you guys have any questions or if you get stuck on anything. The bell work assignment tomorrow, the short one that I'm using for attendance, that one will close and lock at midnight tomorrow. You have an unlimited number of attempts until then, but because I'm using it for attendance, it will close and lock at 11:59 p.m. tomorrow night. Please make sure you do it before then. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day.